Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. We do have this presentation posted online on our Avocet site. If you go to the web address listed on the screen there, when you pull up the site, on the left-hand side of the screen, if you select the What's New drop-down, you will be able to find the STAAR Alternate 2 webinar presentation. So we'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation. This training is going to cover those different tasks that have to be completed in the assessment management system in Pearson Access Next. So we'll start by looking at those key dates for STAAR Alternate 2. Even though this deadline is passed, I do want to talk about the enrollment collection, which occurred October 23rd through November 10th. Now that was the time frame where you had to enter the counts for all of the students who would be testing for STAAR Alternate 2, and that determines the number of test materials that are sent out to your campuses. So that was the enrollment collection. Then you have your student data submission. This is your student registration. You're able to submit your student data either through a file upload or adding your students manually. You were able to do that back at January 10th, and you have up until April 24th to complete that. Then we have your materials list. Though that will be posted online come March 2nd. So again, based on your enrollment collection, the numbers that you entered in during that enrollment collection, that determine those materials that we will be sending to your campuses and districts there. And the materials list will indicate those materials. So again, that will be posted March 2nd. March 2nd is also the time when you will be able to place your order for additional materials. You'll be able to do that March 2nd through April 13th. And we do recommend that once we have the materials list posted and you have your campus test coordinators review that materials list and also consider the overages that we're going to send out to you, the extra materials that we'll send out to you. And based on the counts from your campus coordinators, we recommend that you, if possible, submit one order for additional materials in the Pearson Access Next site. And again, you'll be able to start placing orders for additional materials come March 2nd up until April 13th. March 5th through March 9th is when you should start receiving your materials. March 19th through the 30th, or March 30th, is the preview window. This is where your STAAR Alternate 2 test administrators will be able to preview the test content, the test materials. Then we have the STAAR Alternate 2 assessment window, which runs from April 2nd through April 20th. And the verification window, that runs from April 23rd through the 24th, and we'll discuss what you're able to do during that verification window here in a bit. Then you have the April 24th deadline for ordering additional reports. And finally, April 27th is when you will return your STAAR Alternate 2 test materials. So again, some key dates here for the STAAR Alternate 2. So now we'll take a look at the test administration process for STAAR Alternate 2. And that starts with making sure that your students are registered and assigned to their correct tests. So again, this can be done through the student registration import, but you can also go in and manually register your students in the assessment management system. And we do have instructions on how to do both in the STAAR Alternate 2 and TALPAS Assessment Management System User's Guide, which you can also find on our Avocet website, and also in the Assessment Management System under Support Documentation. So again, you want to make sure that your students are registered and assigned to the correct tests. Next, you want to make sure that the score codes and accommodation information is entered. And some of the score codes are going to be determined by the ARD committee, and they also have to be documented in the student's IEP. So if the student was provided an accommodation, you want to make sure that it is indicated in the system. Also, new for this year, on the STAAR Alternate 2 scoring document, which we're going to take a look at here in a bit, it's going to have a section there where you'll have to indicate, or the administrator will indicate, yes or no for translated student materials, and that information will also have to be entered in the assessment management system. And same thing for the student responses. Those will have to be entered into Pearson Access Next. So the student responses from the scoring document will be entered into the system there, and all entries are going to be on one page. So the staff will enter in the scoring information. They'll go in, select the student, the test for the student, and enter in the scoring information by selecting the appropriate bubble. And we'll take a look at that here. And next, your Materials will have to be returned, and that includes your manuals, booklets, scoring documents, any photocopies of secure test materials, and those things that do not need to be returned include the accompanying pictures, objects, or textured materials and instructional tools. So that is your general overview of the STAAR Alternate 2 test administration process. And remember, you're able to enter in the student's information directly in the system, and you can also submit a student data file. And just a reminder that you can choose to create and submit separate student registration files if you want to submit them by campus, by grade level. You can do that until all of your students are entered and complete and verified in there. And also remember that there is a section, a column for the group name, so that information will be loaded into your reporting groups based on the group name that you add here in column E. And again, we do have instructions on uploading student data files and entering student information in the Assessment Management System User's Guide. And to see a list of your registered students, you want to make sure that you have the STAAR Alternate 2 Test Administration up here on top selected, 2017, 2018, 2018 STAAR Alternate 2. And here you can select to the search drop-down. There's a little arrow here that you can select to show all results. If you check that box, and it will pull up all those students who are registered for STAAR Alternate 2. Now, if you had to register a student who was not yet registered, then you want to make sure to find students by ignoring those students that are registered to STAAR Alternate 2, and then selecting the checkbox next to the student name and the task to register the student, and you'll be able to register the student. And that's a quick way to do it manually there. So we mentioned that based on the enrollment counts, we are going to send out the test materials out to your campuses and districts. So come March 2nd, we are going to post that materials list, and it will be posted under reports, published reports. Of course, you want to make sure that you have the STAAR Alternate 2 Test Administration selected up on top. And you'll be able to see the materials list by district and by each specific campus. If you're the district coordinator, you'll be able to see all the campuses and what is going to each of your campuses. So again, we do recommend that once this list is posted, that you have your campus coordinators review it, determine what materials are needed. And again, remember, we are sending you extra materials, so take those into consideration as well. And again, if you can, we do recommend that you submit one order for additional materials for your district. Okay, so let's talk about those materials that will be received. So the STAAR Alternate 2 Test Administrator is going to have the following materials listed here per student for each grade, subject, or course that's tested. And that starts with the secure STAAR Alternate 2 Test Administrator Manual. Then you have the student booklet. Next, we have new for this year is the image card set, which we're going to take a look at here in a bit. And then we have the scoring document. Now remember, that scoring document is part of that STAAR Alternate 2 Test Administrator Manual. It's on the back of that manual. But we also have it posted on our Avocet site. You can also find it in our resources section as well. But again, that scoring document is in the back of that Test Administrator Manual. And again, you can also find it a couple of other places, including our Avocet site. So the Test Administrator Manual here, this is going to have the instructions that will explain the responsibilities of the test administrator. So if you want to know what test administrators are supposed to do for the administration, that's the Test Administrator Manual that should be referenced there. It's also going to have the scripted questions and the guidelines on how the administrator is going to test and score each item. And you'll notice here that on the Test Administrator Manual, there is a form number on the manual, which you always want to take note of, and that's also a section on the scoring document that you would be able to enter. So again, information for those teachers who will be administering the STAAR Alternate 2, you want to make sure that they access here this Test Administrator Manuals. Next, we have the student booklets. This will have the stimulus images and the text that's needed for the student to select their answers. And for the first time this year, we will have some color images, and we will send out a survey at the end of the administration that we'll be able to use to gauge test administrator satisfaction, see how your test administrators were satisfied with these color images. Also new for this year are large print student booklets. So there was During the enrollment collection process, there was a section there for you to enter in your large print counts, and the number of large print booklets were based on the students who required an accommodation of enlarged text or images. So each large print booklet is going to come with a standard test booklet kit, which we talked about there. That's going to have that standard test administrator manual, the standard student test booklet, and a set of image cards. And if you have any questions as far as the font and point size of the large print material there, you can refer to the TA Accommodation Resources webpage, and they have additional information on the font and point size. Next here are the image card sets. These are also new for this year, and there's going to be one card set per standard size student booklet. And it's going to have the same images that are in the student's test booklet. And we do have an image card list that is actually already out there posted on Avocet. So that's going to list, and we have the image here, and the number of secure image cards per form. So it's going to list the test here on the left-hand side of the screen. And then on the right, the columns for the different form numbers. And it will have the number of secure image cards per form. Again, you can find this document posted in our Avocet site. And here is an example of those image card sets. So these will be perforated cards, so be 4 cards on an 8.5 by 11 page. And this is for the test administrators to use, but again, they're not required to use it. This is just extra for them to have. And the image cards will have a number stamp on the back that will correspond with the test item number. Next, we'll take a look at the scoring document here. So remember, for STAAR Alternate 2, you do not have to create test sessions. Test sessions are no longer created for the STAAR Alternate 2 administration. Actually, the system will not even let you create test sessions for STAAR Alternate 2 because you don't have to. The student responses from the scoring document are going to be entered online without having to create a test session, and we're going to show you how that's going to be done. Also on the scoring document, we talked about the information, the translated student materials. That's new for this year. There's a section there to select yes or no. There's also the form number here that you'll enter from the student booklet, the student's name, the grade, subject, and the assessment year. Now, as a reminder, testing personnel have to be trained, and they must have signed an oath on file before they start accessing any of these test materials. So again, that is the scoring document, and remember, you can find that on the back of the on the back of the test administrator manual, and you can also find it posted in Avocet. And if you did have to place an order for additional materials, you would do that in the site there by going to Setup, and then Orders and Shipment Tracking. And on the task drop-down, you're going to select to create edit orders, and you're going to verify the information here. And next, you'll select to add items. So again, you want to communicate with your campus testing coordinators and determine the different test materials that you need to order. Select to add items, and you'll be taken to this next screen on top here where you can search for the materials. When you locate the test materials, there will be descriptions listed here, and you'll just enter in the amounts that you'll need for each item. After you verify those materials, you'll select Save here, and then on the next screen, you'll verify those materials that you entered in the numbers here, in those counts here, and then you'll select to create, and that additional order would then be created. Okay, now we'll talk about entering students' test details, including score codes, accommodations, and remember we also talked about, new for this year, the translated student material. So again, that's where you're going to enter yes or no to indicate whether the bold text in the presentation instructions, if it was translated, if that text was translated into a language other than English. And the default is going to be no. So if there was no translations, then the default is no. And this is how you would enter those details from on top. Okay, of course, you always want to make sure that you have the STAAR Alternate 2 test administration selected up on top. Then you're going to go to testing and then student tests. You're going to search for the student. Remember, you can select the drop down here to search for all students. You can then select the checkbox next to the students whose details you want to enter here. And then on the task drop down, you're going to select edit student tests, and you'll be taken to the next screen here where you'll Make sure to select the student test. You want to enter details for here, and you'll add the student details. So here's where you'll be able to add the translated student materials, if necessary, a score code, a do not report reason, and here's also where you will enter in the accommodations for STAAR Alternate 2 students. And after you enter in all of the information that needs to be entered here, you'll just select Save. And if you had other student tests selected, you'll be able to click on them on this side of the screen and just go down the list and enter in any of the information that needs to be entered. So again, that's how you'll enter the STAAR translated student materials, indication, and also the accommodation. Next here is how to enter in the student responses. So again, remember, you do not have to create test sessions for STAAR Alternate 2. The responses are going to be taken from the scoring answer document, and you're going to enter those responses into the system here. So similar to entering the student details, you'll start off by selecting the STAAR Alternate 2 test administration up on top. You want to make sure that you have testing and student test selected. Again, you're going to search for and select for the student whose responses you want to enter. And this time up on the Select Task dropdown, you can select SCORE Alternate Student Tests. And of course, you can perform both of these tasks at the same time if you wanted to, or if you were just entering student responses, these are the steps you would take here. So after you select SCORE Alternate Student Test and start, you'll be taken to this next screen here. Again, you want to make sure that you've selected the student's test here from the left-hand side of the screen, and the form will appear here, and the administrator will go through and enter in the responses from the scoring document. You also notice this is where the form number will be entered. There will be a drop-down here for the form number, so you want to make sure that it is the correct form number entered, and then users will just go through and select the bubble for the response here and save it. After all of the responses have been entered, then you will be able to submit the responses. So saving it will save all the responses. For example, if an administrator just entered in the responses from questions 1 through 10, they can save it, come back to it later, enter in the remaining responses, and after all of the responses have been entered, then they will be able to submit it. So submitting it actually submits those responses to be scored. So again, here is where you're entering the information. You can save it, but again, don't forget that you will want to make sure to submit it after all the responses have been entered. And if you had selected additional student tests on the previous screen, they would be listed here, and you'll be able to go down the list to enter in those student responses for each of those student tests. Okay, so again, just briefly here, going through those steps again of entering student responses. And again, I want to remind you that you do not have to create STAAR Alternate 2 test sessions. You're going into the Pearson Access Next site, selecting the STAAR Alternate 2 test administration, going to Testing, Student Tests, search for the student, and remember, you can select multiple if you wanted to at a time. Select to SCORE Alternate Student Test and start. Select the student test from the left-hand side of the screen, enter the form number and the responses here, save. If you've entered in all the responses and are ready to submit, go ahead and submit and move on to the next student. Again, those are the steps of entering student responses for STAAR Alternate 2. Next, we have information on the verification window. So this is intended to make sure that you have submitted and completed all of your STAAR Alternate 2 assessment information in the assessment management system, and you've collected all of your documents as well. So if you find that there was any student data that's been omitted, then during that verification window, you can go ahead and enter in that student information. Also, if you find during that verification window that a student who is eligible for STAAR Alternate 2 hasn't been tested, well, you can go ahead and test them and make sure to enter in that data during the verification window. Of course, you don't want to wait until the very end there. That verification window, again, it's just available if you find that there was anything that was incomplete. You have that verification window to make sure to enter in and make sure all the student information is complete and all students who are eligible for STAAR Alternate 2 have been tested. So that is information on the verification window. Next is about returning materials to the campus coordinator. That includes the used and unused non-scorable materials listed on the screen, including the test administrator manuals, the student test booklets, grouped by grades for 3 through 8 and by course for end of course. Also the STAAR Alternate 2 scoring document, the image card sets, and any photocopies of secure test materials if those were used. And for these non-scorables, you want to make sure to pack them either by campus or district. And if you are doing it by campus, we do ask that you group all of the materials for a single campus together in a box before you add materials from another campus on top of that. And also don't mix any STAAR Alternate 2 materials with materials from another test administration. Okay, and there is going to be a survey we mentioned that will be shared with the districts, and again that will guide the test features of future STAAR Alternate 2 development. So look for that survey to be coming out here soon. And next is information on the student report card, the students' test results. They used to be posted on what we call the confidential student report, but they'll now be called student report cards, and it will show the performance data for each student on these subject area tests. And we'll also have resources that will be available for parents of students that have significant cognitive disabilities, and we will have more information coming out in regards to the new student report card. And just some information here as far as resources. We do have the 2018 District and Campus Coordinators Manual that is available out there for you. There's a whole section of STAAR Alternate 2. Also the Educator Guide to STAAR Alternate 2, STAAR Alternate 2 Test Administrator Manual, and we also have the STAAR Alternate 2 and TELPAS Assessment Management System User's Guide. So if you have questions on the basics of the assessment management system, that would be a good place to start. It walks you through everything from logging in to creating user accounts. So again, you have these resources, and these resources are posted out there on our Avocet site. You can access Avocet by going to the web address listed on the screen there, avocet.pearson.com/tx/home. And also, if TEA's site, there are a bunch of STAAR Alternate 2 resources there. If you go to their Special Ed STAAR Alternate section on the TEA website listed on the screen here, you'll find additional STAAR Alternate 2 resources. And next we have our support information. Remember, you can always submit us a Pearson customer support form. We do have the new chat feature available. If you want to submit a chat, you can do so through the Pearson Access Next site. And if you have any questions on policy, you want to make sure to contact TEA's Student Assessment Division at the number listed on the screen, 512-463-9536. That brings us to the end of our presentation portion of today's training. I want to thank you all so much for attending.